Yeah. We can do that.
I have a question.
I don't know. Dennis has a question.
Yep.
What's your question,
I have
Dennis?
a question. Do Christians believe in the natural world?
Elaborate.
Well, if you look at their creation myth, everything in the universe was deliberately designed and spoken into existence with magic words. That doesn't seem natural.
Ah.
And so it seems like there's no such thing as nature. Everything's a designed contraption, a thing.
So the question is, for me,
Yeah.
do you want like the actual answer, or are we just having fun?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I kind of want the, well, we're doing both, but
Choose
what's
which
the
one.
actual answer?
Yeah.
If I bake a cake, that doesn't mean that the cake is made of my substance. The entire point is that a supernatural being should, if it had sufficient power, be able to create something that is natural and then self-sustaining. So in the same sense that the cause of the Big Bang
Right.
is not co-equal to the substance of the Big Bang. So you could have a supernatural cause of the Big Bang, you could have a metanatural cause of the Big Bang, or you could have a I guess, hypernatural cause where there's the broader universe we don't know. But the fact that a God does magic to bring something into existence doesn't tell you what the thing that is brought into existence, whether it is magical. So like if I'm on stage performing something, hey, fake magic is real magic's fake as far as we know. Like, thanks, Randy. And so if I take smoke and put it in my hands and form an ice cube from it. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually not doing anything supernatural, but I'm emulating the supernatural, which is to take nothing or smoke and transubstantiate it into something that is real and natural, which is the ice cube. So as a former Christian, when we're talking about the substance, natural is just the word we use to describe all of the processes in the universe that we
all the designed, deliberately designed processes.
Yes. But it's like, okay,
that's the opposite of I mean,
I can write a
that's the
computer
definition
program.
of artificial, is if something is designed and built.
Sure. Now, so this goes back to something you said years ago on this program.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Which, talking about the watchmaker argument.
Yes.
When you, and I've borrowed this, I don't know, 53,000 times.
Really? Good.
Where you talked about, if they're right, we are walking through on a beach of watches in a universe of watches and picking up one particular watch and saying, look how special this is.
Yes.
The difference here is that there's two different kind of views on this, which is the notion that God manipulates and makes and fixes everything. So God even constructs a grain of sand. The other view is that God got the universe rolling, tampers from time to time, but he doesn't construct every single grain of sand.
Oh, but that doesn't jibe with if they call the God omniscient and all powerful, and that's the God that created the universe, then he cannot escape the fact that he knows the path of every subatomic particle from beginning to end.
But knowing the path and even selecting the path doesn't tell you anything about the substance of the path.
Substance.
Can you elaborate on what
So
you mean by
I would agree with you that what you're describing, this three-pronged God, annihilates any notion of free will. Because if God made this universe and had options about other universes, then he specifically chose the universe in which we're having this conversation right now.
Yep.
So there was no free will involved.
Right.
That is separate from the fact that somebody creates something through a process, let's say magic, doesn't tell you whether the thing they created is magical.
Well, the thing doesn't have to be magical, but how can you say it's natural?
Well, natural is just a label we put on the things that we experience in nature. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say that's kind of, I was about to say, well, that sounds like a not complete description, but it sounded like you were moving on to describe what nature was in that context.
As far as we know, nature is everything. We don't know of anything beyond nature.
Right.
the explanation here is that, or the thing that they're reaching for is that there must have been something greater than nature or outside of nature that created nature. But the fact that that thing is supernatural and had intention doesn't mean that what it created is not natural. You're talking about the origin of everything is not natural, in which case you're correct. But
Right.
I'm saying that.
But everything's also designed.
I think.
But design doesn't necessarily mean it's not natural.
Yeah. I think
That's what's so weird. Design seems to be the very definition of artificial.
I agree. So
It's a word game, but
so we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
We recognize design by contrasting it with nature.
Right.
This is the thing that I've brought up over and over again.
And that's what I would.
If it's naturally occurring,
yeah.
fine. We contrast that with artificial. Like my cell phone is not naturally occurring.
Right.
It's constructed by an
Yeah.
intelligence.
Yeah.
But the fact that I constructed it doesn't mean that it is intelligent. Just like this, the
Sure.
one can't.
I think I may be able to
Okay.
hit at some of where there's a disconnect here. When you're talking about whether or not, like, the natural world, I think you're talking, if I'm not mistaken, about what people think of as an aspect of what we call nature, which is that it is naturally occurring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as the things that exist, right, like Pluto or
Right.
whatever, you're saying that they exist, and you're saying that Christians believe that they exist, but you are saying, I think Pluto is natural because it occurred as a process of gravity, etc.
Right.
I'm not a cosmologist, so I'm stopping there. And that Christians are saying it was deliberately designed by an intelligence, and that seems to contrast with this idea that nature is naturally occurring.
But
And if I'm not mistaken, what you're saying is that just because something created what we call nature doesn't mean that it's not naturally occurring in that context.
yeah, whether the origin and process by which it came into existence is natural is separate from whether or not it is of natural substance.
Okay.
But this is why I was mentioning there's a couple different views on this, because not every view has God creating every blade of grass or every tree on a constant basis. As a matter of fact, most modern theologians, in the same way that they've redefined omnipotence as all power that is logically possible, would say that God is basically what kicked it all off, created the natural processes, defined the natural laws, and then everything else comes about through those natural laws. So that God doesn't have to make the bush in our front yard. That's the result of a seed from its parents.
But he created every subatomic particle.
Well, no, all he had to do was create the process by which subatomic particles come into existence.
Dennis, is part of
Okay.
your...
It's like writing.
Wow.
It's like writing a video game.
All right.
Yeah.
Sims, for example, that can then go off and do stuff. Once I create the structure and the rules under which they work, I'm no longer picking everything that happens. Now, this is going to be separate from being able to know the future or anything else. I'm just saying there's a model in which God is basically only the first cause for the Big Bang, and after that, everything follows the natural laws that were set up.
Right. But of course, young Earth creationists don't believe that.
Yeah, well, you know, if we're just going to go with young Earth creation, we'd have to do a whole other show. So,
okay.
Dennis's question for young Earth creationists, probably not.
Yeah, because
They probably don't.
they don't go with this
probably
ancient
think
Big
they
Bang. Yeah.
They probably think they do.
Probably think that they believe in nature, but don't.
It's to them it's got to be that we are dirt golems walking around in a universe-sized diorama because it's
Yeah, they have a problem. Well, they have a couple of problems.
oh yeah.
One is that they simultaneously believe in free will, but they also believe in the exact things that would eliminate any hope of free will.
Right.
Okay, so that's especially on the young Earth creationists. There's the others who are like, you know, God only meddles from time to time, but the rest is natural occurring. And so, like in the same way that modern theologians have redefined omnipotence to be all power that is logically possible, they'll do the same thing with omniscience, because the Bible, by the way, doesn't use those words.
Right, I know.
And I guess
Nor
we're
does it
reeling-
say we have free will, does it? It doesn't use the
It suggests that there is freedom to choose, but it also suggests that that free will can be violated by God, and also that it is irrelevant. That faith comes by grace through faith,
right.
And that is a gift of God. It's not something you chose. It's something God imbues you with.
Yeah, and it seems that every story in the Bible that deals with predicting the future, when the God makes a prophecy, is like, well, if people state their free will decision not to do what the prophecy says, and yet find themselves doing what the prophecy says, no amount of free will can change that. So what good is it?
Because
what good is it?
It expressly says that there's nothing that happens that is not according to God's plan.
Right.
That
verse right there is like the death knell.
If prophets are given the gift of prophecy by God, is the phrase that I've heard when I've spoken to people. Does that mean that they are given the gift of prophecy and then use it as it is, or they pray and God gives them prophecies?
Nobody knows.
I don't know.
I think.
Well, I mean, I don't believe that any of this actually happens.
No. I'm saying that even the people who are advocating it can't agree on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
can they agree on anything?
No. Okay. Which is why there's over 1,000 denominations in Christianity.
That's right.
But they're in more disagreement.
Well, prophecy, I mean, that's a limited subset within Christianity as well, because we talk about the gifts of the Spirit, love, peace, joy, blah, blah, blah. But also there's the gifts of, oh, crap, and I'm not going to get them all right. But if you're talking about prophecy, that is a good question. Let's say God has given me the gift of prophecy. Does that mean that I am now able to just make predictions that are going to come true? Okay. Or does it mean that God will tell me things that I then relay? Because if God is just telling me things that I then relay, it's not me that has the gift of prophecy.
Yeah.
It's God. What God is doing is just basically using me as the mouthpiece.
Right.
I am Aaron to Moses. But if I have the gift of prophecy, it's still not me, because all the information still has to come from something beyond me. I'm merely a human being, and so this is why when the Bible talks about prophets, it said, well, you can tell the ones that are truly speaking on behalf of God by whether or not their prophecies come true.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is the most confirmation bias heavy statement that you could probably.
Well, the one thing, a thought experiment I like to present is, okay, what if the God comes down and starts whispering to you everything you're going to do? You're going to sit in that chair. You're going to have pizza this evening. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And no amount of free will that you can muster will change that. You'll end up doing exactly one thing. And so the God coming down and whispering to you everything you're going to do shows you the strings that are making you a complete puppet. But the fact that he doesn't do that doesn't change the fact that the strings are there.
Yeah, that's true. It does say something about our culture, right? Which to contrast with the culture in the United States, contrasting with the politics of the United States, as I stand, in that shows like Westworld present that problem because
no spoilers.
Yes, please, no.
It's from the first.
I've not seen it.
I don't care. I've watched the first episode and then I put it on hold.
Well, never mind.
I can take here. Let me unplug, and you can go
Okay.
ahead and do spoilers.
Well, all right. Here, I'll hold up this pen, and if you don't want spoilers, are neither of you going to listen?
Right, neither of us are going to listen.
Oh wow, that's going to ruin the show. So.
Well, so for the audience, then I'll make this statement. As long as I'm holding up this pen, it's spoilers, and when I put it down, it's not. There's a part
I just
where
lost my thing, and now we're on the
one of
the worst show ever.
This is the best show ever. I don't know what you're talking about.
It for us.
You're welcome. No,
I'll be in the other room.
It's never mind. There are aspects, there are things that come up in shows now. For example, the show Rick and Morty.
Yes.
That
a cartoon show that completely explores all the ramifications
of the
multiple.
multiverse. Yeah. But it's interesting because for a long time, and people that create shows are always saying this or writing this in books or in their autobiographies or whatever, that there's a notion among producers in Hollywood that oh no, that's too smart for the audience or whatever, or too smart for broad appeal. They said that about Star Trek, the original series before it came out. And I think hopefully they'll learn, actually, no, there are large audiences for things that are more thoughtful and, contemplative. And I think we're seeing...
If it's presented right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The Good Place. My gosh, what a fantastic show.
Yes,
However,
I object to spoilers.
I've
for
only
that.
seen the first season. So,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that
You
one.
need to see the second season, man.
I
It's
shouldn't.
awesome.
I shouldn't do spoilers.
I'm waiting for it to hit Netflix.
I did.
Yep.
Season 2 hit Netflix?
Season 2 hit Netflix.
Cool. Because
Time to binge.
Like last night, Black Panther hit, so I watched it.
Yeah,
Right.
cool. Well, we'll have to do a marathon of The Good Place.
Sure.
Because it has so much rewatch. Never mind. All right.
Yeah.
This is not
By the way,
Netflix review.
I
of the show.
successfully predicted the season finale of season 1 of The Good Place on episode 2.
Wow. All right.
All right.
It's yeah.
Okay. No.
I'm just saying, I nailed that.
Cool.
And I love Kristen Bell. And
Yes.
if you have not seen Reefer Madness the musical, you are missing out on one of the finest things
Okay.
that's ever been produced. All right.
Well, I have to see that. But your question
that was quite
we're
a question,
still
yeah.
ostensibly
I still want to
answering is-
trap a Christian in the watchmaker argument and to get him to say, you know, if I say, how do you distinguish the watch from the beach? Well, they'll say, well, one's designed and the other's not.
Right.
I'll have to go, I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
I just didn't expect you to throw your God under the bus so readily.
Yeah, and just cautionarily, what they will say is that God created the processes that create the sand, but it didn't actually create the
that's
sand.
terrible. That's
Well,
terrible.
that's if they are good
Yes.
at apologetics.
You won't find that many people that actually do it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Having gone through this many, many times,
Yeah, I was going to say.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of the things, looking back at any time that questions like this arise in like news media, which is rare because everyone shies away from the subject.
Yeah.
You know, but they're so bad at the arguments. Like I mean,
some are better than others.
Yeah, well,
and
yeah,
some
but-
have done, actually, some incredibly smart people have done their best job to reconcile their notion of the supernatural
Right.
with what we know about the natural. For example, Blake and I had a conversation, or 20, about the supernatural. And at the end of the day, Blake just thinks, okay, number one, you can't exclude the supernatural, and I think we have evidence for it. Therefore, in a Bayesian sense, it's more likely that there's supernatural, kind of. And he's going to beat me up a little for paraphrasing him. But my thing is really simple, and that is, I am not aware of any evidence that I could reasonably conclude the best explanation for this is something supernatural. Because
Right.
in order for something to serve as an explanation, I have to know it exists and understand it. And his primary complaint is, well, if you had to know it exists first, there's all kinds of science we couldn't do. And I'm like, no, that's not the case, because science is based on natural observations. The fact that we observe or we speculate from the mouth of what we know that there's, you know, the Higgs boson is a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, how different would the world be if the supernatural was real?
Yeah. I really can't say.
It would be incredibly different.
It depends on which supernatural people have described, right? Like,
Right.
Like,
Well, you know, we've asked before, what would it be like if God was real? Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is, would it be vastly different? Yeah, in many cases, I think, depending on the definition of God, the world we experience would be very different from the one we do. However, if the definition of God is everything happens according to God's plan, and you can pray, and God will or won't do what he does or
Right.
doesn't want to do, then it would look just exactly like this universe. And instead, but the problem is, you wouldn't have a God that is participating and encouraging human activities in a detectable way. You would have a God that is intentionally making himself appear equivalent to random chance.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that means that God is functionally undetectable, which means every believer is claiming to detect the undetectable.
Right. And identify it.
Yeah.
yeah. It also,
Because it's like, okay, they also believe in the father of lies.
like,
So Christians can be swindled by ordinary human beings.
Yes.
yeah.
And yet the father of lies raises his ugly head and they're all instantly immune.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're
the hell is
protected.
So it's
that
Jesus who
about?
protects them.
Jesus
but-
protects them
but if
from
I
the
was-
father of lies, but not from the con man down the street, obviously.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to do that yourself, because those are both natural and one is supernatural. That's why God doesn't jump in with the con man.
Yeah.
He's trying to, you smart,
You've got-
get you some street smart.
You've got a
boy.
supernatural liar with with unknown powers of persuasion. And it's
And that
like,
gets back to the question I've asked over and over again, which I've never gotten a satisfactory answer to, which is, okay, you believe that there's a God and you believe that there's a Satan, how do you tell which one's the good one and which one's not?
Right.
Or why would you even? I guess a better question would be, why would you assume that either of them is the good one and one is not?
Right.
Yeah.
Heck, looking at the Bible, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I was the ultimate evil, first thing I'd do is, obviously make sure that people were doubtful that I even existed. But the plan would be to, as long as the good one is not interfering, which evidently he doesn't, would be to convince people that I'm the good one.
Right.
And that way, when all of my little minions were running around raping children, and when I set up criminal organizations to shield them from prosecution, people who had already become convinced that I was the good one would defend all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, they wouldn't necessarily defend the action. They would just they would dismiss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or defend the institution.
Well, that's not my
that you've
church.
set up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those weren't real Christians.
It's almost like you're making allusions to things that are happening in the world
Almost.
today. Yes. Yeah.
That's the other thing is one of my favorite passages is let God be true and every man a liar, because then when you ask them, there are people who think that God wrote the book. That's a very, very, very tiny portion.
Right.
The rest of them think that men wrote the book and they were just inspired by God. So if men wrote the book, then all men are lying and the book is wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Except that the book would also be wrong about let God be true and every man a liar.
Yeah.
So now
So
you enter
you-
paradox category territory.
Created
Well, no,
a paradox.
Well,
yes, which is awesome.
A seemingly one, but it doesn't mean that because only if the I don't know that would negate the claim that it was there. It would just mean that you couldn't believe that that statement was true, but it wouldn't mean that the opposite was necessary.
Yeah, the only thing it means is that if you believe that one verse,
Yeah.
you can have no reliable
right.
foundation for any of the verses, including that one.
Yeah.
And no matter, now we'll assume that that one's true. It still draws into question the reliability of every verse, including that one.
Right.
And if we assume that that verse is not true, we've already assumed that the book cannot be true, and now all of a sudden we have no reason to have any reliable expectation that it's correct. And so now we're in a position where, much like judging prophets, we'd have to look at the book, take a claim from the book, and then go out and investigate to confirm that it's actually true.
Oops.
And it's like the Muslims in their Quran.
I'll have to use that scientific method, darn it.
Or Muslims in the Quran or Christians with regard to the Bible will say, but the Bible or the Quran have revealed scientific truths. No, they didn't. They made claims. They weren't scientific truths until science stepped in to confirm this.
Right.
They also weren't claims until science stepped in and provided the answer, and then they figured out that, oh, no, wait, we had it all along, apparently.
They were bald-ass assertions.
Handy retrofit.
And it's sort of also like, this thing about there was the word, and that means, wavelengths, and then there was light, and like...
If the Bible is talking about the germ theory of disease, then why didn't people 2,000 years ago go, we'll have to wash our hands and do all this stuff? Why didn't they do that?
Well, they did wash their hands, and in part because the Bible said to wash your hands.
Oh, yeah.
But I find it not very remarkable that a human being messing around in the blood and guts of his latest kill decided that, or noticed after a period of time that he remained healthier and the food probably tasted better if he washed his damn hands before he actually ate it.
Yeah. Well, that and like there's you naturally don't want to get stuff in your food, right? Like as a human instinct almost. But if you read, there's stuff in the Talmud about
because we're the
that.
descendants of the people who decided not to do that.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a
We lucked out.
evolutionary process. Yeah, there's passages in the Talmud though that describe the process by which they determined that it was God's will that they not, for example, eat pork because the people were getting sick and dying, and they thought it was from things they were eating, and so they effectively decided, we won't eat. I think at one point it was like food that's green or something that doesn't make any sense, and that didn't help. So clearly that wasn't God's will.
It's kind of a science-ish.
Almost, yeah.
Except you know where that leads. That leads to something else that's going on right now.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Jordan Peterson's daughter
no, I haven't heard this.
had all sorts of medical issues growing up, and so she decided that she was going to start eliminating things from her diet. Now she eats only meat, salt, and water. No vegetables, no nothing. Now,
Does she cook it?
yes.
Okay.
But she is on a meat-only diet. And, by the way, she's selling her coaching ability, not promising that she's got any experience, because she doesn't, in a proper balanced diet or anything medical at all. But she's
So she
basically
is a
selling this.
marketing agent.
And she's convinced her dad, which I can affirm, as I've eaten dinner with the man, to only eat meat with salt and water. And they claim that it's cured their depression and countless other things. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying that the bulk of medical science shows that this is actually dangerous, that you are missing essential nutrients, and that there's a good reason to think that this is primarily like placebo effect. But if there's anything to this, it needs to be explored scientifically, and then we can validate whether or not that's the case. But my concern is not that they're necessarily doing it, although I have some concerns because there's health issues. And doctors have come out and said, I'll be surprised if she's not dead in a couple of years, you know. But if she's not, maybe it's because she cheated, maybe it's because we're wrong about things, who knows. But I think it's just as irresponsible to say, hey, I removed everything from my diet except for gummy bears, and I lost 40 pounds.
Like,
There you go.
And I'm feeling
Good
great
for
and
you.
healthy, and my head is no longer fuzzy, and because I can tell you that I eat a lot of gummy bears, and I stopped eating a lot of other stuff. And for a minute there, I thought, I wonder if maybe these gummy bears are so like nutrient deprived that they just sit in my stomach as a mass, absorb the bad stuff, and then you poop them out, and they don't contribute anything to the body.
The gummy bear cleanse.
It is the gummy bear cleanse. There is a path from this sort of exploratory, let me try stuff out, to then I've reached a conclusion. That does not science make. And I think it is dangerously there's gummy bears.
People
the
are
crew
eating
is eating gummy bears.
I think it is dangerously irresponsible. I mean, I know legally she's not saying that she's actually got any expertise, but she's basically selling, I think, for $75 for a half hour for people to come to her so that she can tell them her story and let them know that it could be all right for them to go on a meat-only diet. Now, I would like to encourage all the ethical vegans in the world to, launch their ire at the people who are encouraging a meat-only diet instead of those of us who are just saying, hey, I'm not convinced it's necessarily immoral.
Yeah, as I've said in the past, vegans attack, basically. But hashtag vegans attack. But we'll see if that does anything. Yeah, that sounds ridiculously dangerous. How long has she been doing that? Do you know?
I don't know, but one of the major papers, major news sources just wrote an article about her like in the last week. I knew about this back when we did our event together in Toronto.
It is a step up from a breatharian.
Yeah.
So it's got that.
At least you're eating something.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were breathing in the aura of the sun or something.
Something. I don't know what they think they're doing.
I
know what I think they're doing. They're thinking they're sneaking food from McDonald's. That's what they think they're doing.
Well, actually, and so Peterson went on, I think, Joe Rogan's podcast and was talking about this, and Joe was trying to hit him on it, and Peterson said that when they eat something other than meat, it fundamentally throws their system off. So I think he ate something like, I don't know, bread or a cracker or some soup, and then he did not sleep for 20-some-odd days. And so Joe was asking him, or maybe it was 30 days, I don't know. It was asking him something about what that's like, and he's like, well, you go to bed and you lay there and you can't sleep, and then you get up and you keep going. And the person who wrote the article did something wonderful, which was to show that the world record for not sleeping was significantly less than what Jordan was claiming.
Yeah.
And that, if nothing else, lets you know that either Jordan Peterson should be in the Guinness Book of World Records for sleeping less than anybody, which, by the way, puts you in a dangerous mental state such that you should not be listened to and considered an authority. Oh, yeah. Or he's exaggerating or outright lying.
Yeah.
Let's figure out which
one or the other.
Yep. Either he is accurately describing what occurred or inaccurately describing what occurred. And I know which way I lean on that.
Yeah.
Just based on what we know. Damn. It's kind of a shame sometimes that I became, from a weird angle, like a skeptic and found ethics, because $75 for half an hour, like I don't know. I just think about rent far more often.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. That's terrible. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit thrown off. I wasn't thinking about being given terrible diets or diets that, again, I'm not a nutritionist, but appear to fly in the face of everything that nutritionists have said.